With this, I will ask Patty if she'll ring the bell. Thank you, Patty. I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 28th meeting of the Rotary Club of West Jacksonville. This is actually a combined meeting with the Riverside Club, and it was life we'd be having our Florida Georgia meeting like we did last year. So hopefully, if you didn't wear your colors today, you can quickly grab something to show your colors. I would ask that you please mute yourself call until you have until you're called on for the roles. And after the speaker this afternoon, or during the speaker, if you have questions, if you'll chat them, we'll get to those when the speaker's finished. Our invocation today will be given by Dan Maloney, and then Drew Story will lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mary Pat, and welcome our friends from the Riverside Club. Before I start, I just want us to keep the people of South Louisiana in our hearts and mind, because they're going through what Florida went through, not that long ago. They're getting hit again, so let's think about them. Keep them in our thoughts and prayers. A few nights ago, I saw on television Cindy McCain was on, the widow of Senator John McCain, and in one of the things she said about describing her late husband was that his philosophy was to put service above self. She used that phrase, and I thought to myself, I wonder if he was a Rotarian. And while I Googled up the best I could to see where he might have been a member. I did find a club in Arizona that has the John McCain Good Guy Award. And I thought, he was a good guy, regardless of whether, what you felt about his politics. He saw his opponents as adversaries, not enemies. I think he kept in his mind that today's adversary can be tomorrow's allies. And I thought, he seemed to live values that would mirror the Rotary values. So, in the end, I think it's important for us to keep those kind of role models in mind, because we hope that goodwill and kindness and understanding and empathy and tolerance will triumph over fear, cynicism, suspicion, harshness, and callousness, especially in these dark, divided times. So that's the world I would hope we will be able to live in. And even though we've crossed a lot of boundaries and a lot of barriers, it doesn't mean we can't restore those marks. So let's hope for peace and love, and we let's hope and pray for those. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dan.
And I hope you're running for office.
Please stay with me. The Pledge of the United States. I'd like for everybody to just briefly consider the words that you're saying. So often we memorize prayers and pledges without thinking what these words actually mean. So let's think about as we pledge our allegiance to the United States. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America,
United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. 2. Nice.
Thank you, Drew, and thank you, Patty, for putting the flag for all of us. We don't have a President's Moment in History today, and so I wanted to ask if you are a past president of our club and you haven't talked with Bob Hyde yet about presenting a past President's Moment in History, I would ask you to please contact Bob so that we can get you scheduled. It's really important for our club to celebrate our past and all of the works of service that we've done and accomplished over the years, especially as we have so many new members. So if you haven't had a chance, please get on the schedule for that. We have some pop-ups today. The first one is past President Dan Maloney.
Thanks, Mary Pat. For those people who were part of the Vibrant Club seminar, virtual seminar this past weekend, you would have found a really remarkable virtual meeting that our district was conducting. We appreciated the energy of past District Governor Mike Dara, and of course all the typical cast of characters that we see at these meetings, plus about 150 more people or so, 160 more people. For our club, I believe Philippe joined for a bit. Certainly Ken Baker was there, Larry Daly, and I know I'm forgetting. Oh, and Marshall Butler, of course. It was a worthwhile endeavor, and while I was regretting missing the cleanup, we did get an award. We got our Platinum Club Award, so that is shared by all the members. Thank you for your support and making us all proud.
Thank you, Dan. I had to mute myself because the next door neighbor's lawn company's there. So if it becomes distracting, let me know and I'll have to move into another room. The next pop-up is regarding the Zone Summit on November 20th and 21st. You're able to join this. I don't think it's usually open to the entire Rotary membership, but it will give you the opportunity to meet with Rotarians from the US, Caribbean, and around the world, and also participate in breakout sessions. And they'll also have some top flight speakers. And that link is available on through our website, and you can find out the times there as well. Next week, we're back at Timuquana for an in-person meeting. For those who would like to attend, please be sure to RSVP and check the DAC-DB calendar for future events. They're all listed and you can RSVP at any time. We're still working through some of our technical challenges from the last live Zoom meeting. We think you'll be happy with the improvements, and from all the feedback that I received, the people who attended in person enjoyed their experience there. We'll have anybody who's speaking will ask you to go to the podium so that you can be on camera, and we're rearranging the cameras a little bit so that the people on Zoom can see everybody who's in person. So thank you everybody for bearing with us through all these transitions. I did want to repeat for everybody the schedule for in-person meetings. So we have November 4th, November 18th, December 2nd, and December 17th. And the December 17th is our party at the zoo. If you have any questions, let me know. In person, November 4th, 18th, December 2nd, and then the party at the zoo. Is Carter on board today? Would you like to do a pop-up about the river cleanup? I'm not sure.
I haven't seen him come in yet. No.
I haven't seen him. Okay. Well, thanks to all who joined in with that. We had both West Jacks and Riverside Rotarians. And believe it or not, even with the high tides, there was a ton of trash. We had on boats Eric Schultz, Phil Voss with all of his grandkids, John Runyon, Carter, and Ryan Crabtree were all out on boats with their families. And then for the kayakers, it was myself, Ed Pratt Daniels, Joe Eberly, and Bud Para. So thanks for everybody who attended that, and the Riversiders as well. Hopefully we can try it again in the spring. And then next on the calendar is our the second event in our Rotary Triathlon is November 21st, and we'll be doing a bicycle ride hosted by Charlie Fetzer, and that'll be 10 a.m. on November 21st. And Charlie and Mike are working out the details, and we'll be in touch more. The next thing I wanted to mention was our attendance. It was mentioned in Mr. Gay's memorial service how important the Rotary was to him and how important the attendance was to him over his over 50 years of service in the club. And I just wanted to take a minute to recognize the members. A couple weeks ago, I mentioned the top 10 in our club, and I wanted to mention the other members of our club who have between 13 and 20 years of perfect attendance. And that would be Mike Crumpler at 20, Scott Emery at 20, Frank Shy at 19, Marshall Butler at 18, Vince Coyle at 17, Will Croft, Joe, Al Yates, and Ike. Al, they were all at 15, Ike is at 14, Mark Holsey is at 13, and Drew Story is also at 13. So I'd like for everybody to give them a hand and acknowledge the importance of attendance. And even in this age of Zoom, it's still critical to the foundation of our club. This week, I'll ask Palmer Bell to share our family of Rotary.
Right, and again, this week, Bob Hyde gave notice early this morning that he wasn't going to be able to be here on the Zoom today. Apparently his wife, Marilyn, is just getting out of the hospital after knee surgery, so he's playing nursemaid this afternoon and asked if somebody would stand in for him. So I'm going to try to do that. If anybody has any other family of Rotary news, go for it. This is your moment in time. Okay, well, hearing none, the birthdays for this week and early next week, Dan Dodd is the 27th, Rod Butler is the 28th, Jackie Culver is a Halloween birth, so she's October 31st, Jim Lanier is November 1st, and Jeff Ludwig is November 2nd. So happy birthday, past and future for all of you. And I think that's it, Mary Pat.
Thank you, Palmer. Happy birthday, everybody. Now we have Dane Jensen, our Sergeant at Arms, with the football report. And if you can identify the visiting Rotarians.
Happy to do it, Mary Pat. First, for the eagerly awaited all-important fantasy football update. It looks like overall Team Kid is in first place with a record of 5-2. That's a winning percentage of just over 71%. Followed closely by Team Carroll, also at 5-2. Third place right now goes to Marshall Butler, aka Fairfax Fancy Pants. That's the name of his team. Followed by Team Runyon and then myself. President Mary Pat, you're currently 6th. Brandon Hillard is currently 7th. Team Sherlock is 8th. I believe Team Cold is number 9. Team Howie is number 10. Bandits Maloney, number 11. And Team DeBears, currently number 12. Having a great time with this so far. I hope that more will join us next year. It's really been a fun experience. As far as visiting guests and Rotarians are concerned, I picked up on a few names from Riverside. I'd like to welcome Casey Bolger, Jeff Green, Kevin Hazel. I know that there's more of you with us. I apologize. I didn't get your names in advance, but welcome, and I hope you guys enjoy the program today. So that concludes my report, President Mary Pat.
Thank you, Dane. Coming from the person that knows the least amount of football, I'm shocked that I'm not number 10. Ike, if you will, speaking of football and sports, please introduce our speaker, Denny Thompson.
Thank you, President Mary Pat. So today our speaker is radio sportscaster Denny Thompson. Denny Thompson is the founder and owner of 6 Points Jacksonville, the premier quarterback training group of North Florida. Denny has been coaching quarterbacks in some capacity since 2002. Denny has filled the role of head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, wide receiver coach at the high school level. Training quarterbacks is Denny's full-time job, and he is considered to be one of the top quarterback trainers in the country. Denny has been married for over 20 years, has 2 sons, and lives in Jacksonville. And, of course, he co-hosts The Sports Den. It's a daily sports talk show on 1010XL and 92.5 FM. Fellow Rotarians, Denny Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad to be here. It's so fun to actually get to do this stuff, whether it's through Zoom calls or, you know, some meetings still in person. It's just, it's a breath of fresh air to be able to do this almost on a weekly basis. I know we've all kind of gotten used to this Zoom call world. It has also greatly affected the process of sports as well, which people seem to be interested about. But as you guys were just told, my name is Denny Thompson. I host the Sports Den on 1010XL and 92.5 FM, the official flagship station of the Jacksonville Jaguars, which we will get to in just a minute. And I also I am the founder and owner of 6 Points Quarterback Training Facility, which is kind of my specialty is the role of quarterbacks and what they play, and kind of what we do is we are developers of quarterbacks, not really trainers. We develop every aspect, everything from footwork and mechanics to learning to deal with the media, which is interesting since I'm considered the media, to leadership development and character development and the psychology of the position, and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a very rewarding gig, and we've been extremely fortunate in the guys that we have been able to associate ourselves with and work with. And right now we have right around, I've lost count, we have right around 300 total quarterbacks, 50-ish, we'll call it, playing college football right now, and several playing NFL football as well. And the question that I get the most is, do you work with Gardner Minshew? And that answer is yes, I do work with Gardner. Just not much, but Gardner is one of our quarterbacks. And even though Gardner's gotten off to kind of a rough start, there's a couple things I always say about Gardner Minshew that has made him one of my favorite guys. It actually has absolutely nothing to do with football. Every now and then, you guys know this, you're in business, you're around people, you guys always see those people that just have that it factor, and it's not the mustache, it's not the long hair. I tell Gardner this all the time, and I've told people this all the time. He was put on this earth for purposes much bigger than football. Really smart guy, amazing man, very, very solid guy, and football, however that works out for him, will be the least of his accomplishments that he leaves in this world. So I do get a chance to work with some really cool guys like that, but specifically, you know, what I thought we could dive into here, and obviously we can take as many questions as you guys would like to give, is as I've been doing these, people seem to be really interested in what specific role has the state of events in this country played inside the sport of football at each level, and kind of what goes on behind the scenes. And we're seeing here locally, it's a weird football year, right? I mean, I guess it's not too weird that the Jags are losing. We've kind of become accustomed to that, and they're having a terrible year. I mean, it's as bad as what we've seen here in a while, and we've seen pretty bad. And then you've got, of course, Florida State struggling as well, which I'm still getting used to. I was talking to some gentlemen before who asked me, who's my team? And I was born in Louisiana. I lived in Arkansas for a while, but I moved to Jacksonville when I was in high school. And so I kind of adopted the Gators. And so now I'm 44 years old. And so I've been a Gator fan for a while. But having so many guys playing at the collegiate level has made me really not have a team as much as I just pull for these guys. We have guys at Georgia and Kentucky and Alabama and places like that. We also have guys at Florida, but you end up just pulling for them. But what it has allowed me to do is take a snapshot of kind of the programs and see behind the scenes of these programs that we all talk about. And that's been a pretty cool thing. And to see what Dan Mullen has done at Florida on the field has been really impressive, really impressive. And as you guys know, they've got a game. This is normally Florida Georgia week, and really COVID didn't affect that for whatever reason. It was always going to be November 6th this year, but Florida Georgia for us is a month-long talking process inside the media world and even just locally here in Jacksonville. Well, both of them are playing this week, just not each other. Florida coming off of, we can call it an interesting 3 weeks, 30-something positive COVID tests inside the Florida program. They had to shut basically everything down. Weren't allowed to come in the facility, weren't allowed to do anything except for what we're doing here, Zoom meetings. And so they've just gotten back onto the practice field 2 days ago, and we'll play Missouri this week, while Georgia plays Kentucky this week. And I think I was doing a Gator podcast earlier, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes for Florida. And I think it'll be a good indicator for all of us on how this offseason has gone and what we kind of expect going forward in the NFL as maybe more issues arise. But it's interesting to me, and it may not be interesting to you guys, but how many resources have gone into this whole COVID thing from the sports perspective. And not to make this about COVID as much as I'm going to make it about preparation and what we've been able to see behind the scenes is beyond the protocols and all that kind of stuff, the amount of science that has gone into the training and or lack thereof training, and how our guys, I'll speak firsthand knowledge from our quarterback's perspective, how they've been monitored and how they've these colleges and these NFL teams have made sure that these guys, they're being put into a good situation on the field, outside of the outbreak of the pandemic. It's been very, very interesting. We had a group when all this first started happening that came into Jacksonville, and that group consisted of a quarterback for the Raiders, a quarterback for the Steelers, a couple quarterbacks here for the Jags, and then 7 SEC, ACC quarterbacks. And we trained basically all the way through it in a bubble. We created our own little bubble, essentially. We had a doctor present, a Monday each week to administer tests. And we kind of trained our way through this from a quarterback perspective. And it was cool to see, like Alabama, for example, sent all of their guys back home with watches, with Apple Watches. And these Apple Watches were connected to the point to where the Alabama strength staff could monitor how much sleep they were getting each day, as well as how much movement, how much intensity they were putting out each and every day. And they did this all the way through the quarantine side to make sure that these guys were getting their exercise in. And when I say that, like, people think Nick Saban, they think Alabama, they think, of course he was doing that, but it wasn't from like a dictatorship type of thing. It was more of we can't be with you, we're going to help you. You need to get this in each day. And if you're not getting it in, how can we assist you in doing that? And every college and every NFL team had their own version of that. And so whenever football started to come back around, and I can't speak for the other sports because I don't work as closely with them, but when football started to come around and the questions started to pop up is, outside of the pandemic, how safe are these guys when they haven't been working out? it was cool to have that sense of comfort that you knew that these guys were being taken care of, and it was such a nod to technology and such a nod to the business that has become football, college football, and pro football, and it was super impressive. So now, I'm looking kind of projecting ahead. We were talking before you guys started your meeting about a couple of teams, Clemson, Alabama, and I can put Florida in there. The teams that were most prepared through all this and were able to kind of keep their wits about them and get a plan and execute a plan are the teams sitting at the top. And it's been just a really neat process, and in a lot of ways a motivating process to see as I work with these guys day in and day out. And it's and just like all of you, our businesses have changed so much, so much. A lot of lost revenue, like I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced as well, but also a new way to do things better. And we've learned that the hard way, but in all honesty, in a way that probably we never would have been pushed to learn, that truly develops quarterbacks. We would have never had this asset had we not come across this pandemic. And so just like everybody else, I'm ready for it to be done, but it certainly did change the way I do my business. And I think I can say pretty confidently it changed the way sports is managed and trained and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I'll go through some of the questions I've gotten this week. I did another speaking event 2 days ago, and the main question was either had to do with Florida, Georgia, Florida State, and of course our hometown Jags. And the main question that I get about the Jaguars is, what's going on? What's wrong? What is there a fix? What is it? What is the fix? Unfortunately, I think we kind of all know where this is headed, and probably yet another rebuilding situation. None of us really know what Shad Khan's thinking. We know that I think probably if we did a vote right now from all of us on this meeting, 80% of us who follow the Jags would say they need to clean house. And that kind of, the next question becomes, well, what do they do at quarterback? And having the relationship that I have with Gardner, I do have some biases, but I will say this. I've known Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback at Clemson, for 5 years. And I got a chance to work with Trevor at a couple of Elite 11 camps, when he was a sophomore in high school. This guy's different. This guy's special. This guy is truly a generational talent. He's shown that as the quarterback at Clemson. And if you have the opportunity, I don't care who you are, with the exception of maybe, if you have Patrick Mahomes or somebody like that, obviously you wouldn't do it to Russell Wilson, but I don't care who you are and how you feel about your quarterback position. If you have a chance to get a guy like Trevor Lawrence, then you jump at that. You absolutely do that. And so if the Jags have that opportunity, which is going to mean the Jets are going to need to win a game or two, and the Jags will have to continue their losing ways, that may be the best thing for this franchise long term, is to fall into that first pick, something that the Jaguars have never had in their history. They've never had the first overall pick in the NFL draft. We're certainly look like we're heading somewhere in that direction. So as Jaguar fans watching the games on Sundays, it's a bit confusing. It's a bit it's a what's the word I'm looking for? I was confused on Sunday watching them play the Chargers, because it was like we all pull for sport for our team to win, but at the same time, winning is losing in this situation, and losing is winning in this situation. The Jags and the Jets do not play this year, and if you've gotten a chance to watch the New York Jets, they are really bad, really bad. So the worst case scenario, I think, for the Jaguars would be to continue to lose and still not have that number one pick overall. So that's something that as Jag fans maybe we don't want to see. But as Gardner specific, the interesting thing this year for Gardner is I think there's a lot of outside noise with him. And I can say with a certainty, Gardner Minshew never thinks about, are the Jaguars going to pick a quarterback number 1 overall, and am I going to lose my job? That doesn't enter his mind. And I can say that with confidence. You don't get to that level of success that Gardner Minshew is at by worrying about anybody except for yourself. And so his focus is always on how good can I possibly be. And I think a lot of what we've seen the last couple games out of him is him trying to develop as a quarterback, staying inside the pocket, trying to be a traditional quarterback, trying to check all the boxes and do all that kind of stuff. And it's if you've heard his press conferences, if you've seen him play, my personal opinion is that it's taken his personality out of the game, and it's taken some of the strong suits out of the game. And so it's an interesting dynamic, because as one of the guys that works with him, one of the things that we have to do always is we always have to be developing to make you as good of an NFL quarterback as you possibly can be. And one of those things is you have to stay in the pocket and deliver passes, but that's just not who he is. And so it really is a situation for Gardner of instant success means doing things a little differently, and in some cases what people would perceive as the wrong way to get that success now, where that is the opposite of long-term success for him. Long-term success is proving that even at his size that he can sit in the pocket and he can deliver a football. So I think it's an intriguing storyline over and above what we're seeing on the field of kind of a little bit of a slump that he looks to have been in. But it's one that I'm obviously keeping an eye on, but that I think a lot of people would be interested to hear that he's having to deal with. But Gardner I think he's got a great future ahead of him, whether it's here in Jacksonville or somewhere else. And I will put a positive spin on this Jaguar team in this way. They've let a lot of talent go, way too much talent go, that are doing really good things across the league. Their focus has got to become on securing the guys that are here that are good, that they actually hit on. DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, James Robinson, guys like that okay, I'm not going to have to replace these guys because these guys have turned out to be very good, especially for when they picked them. And in the past few years, what I think is the downfall of this franchise is they have not re-signed those guys. They've put their money in the wrong places. And it's come back to get them. They put their money in Blake Bortles. They put their money in Miles Jack a little early. They put their money, if you go back to Allen Hurns, Telvin Smith, all guys with the exception of Miles Jack that are no longer here, and didn't pay the guys that maybe they should have paid. You can actually look at this roster, and what's insane is I want to say up until 2018, every first-round pick is gone. And by NFL standards, that is a recipe for absolute disaster. And so they've got to find a way, whether it's cleaning house, whether it's getting rid of everybody and starting over, or whether it's getting rid of certain people inside of that franchise. They've got to find a way to change the culture and to change the expectations here in Jacksonville. Because the one thing this city has shown, and we talk about this on our show a lot of times, this city is more than viable for an NFL football team. You just have to win. When the Jaguars have won, this has been one of the best NFL cities there are. I grew up a Saints fan, and everybody thinks that Saints fans are this rabid fan base, and they are now. And I'm still a Saints fan, but I can remember growing up, and I can remember going to the Superdome when they weren't any good with bags on. People had bags on their heads, and it was a third full. And same thing with Seattle. If you think back to Seattle when they weren't winning, nobody was going to the games. And so Lot J, all the development, all that kind of stuff notwithstanding, that's all great stuff. You've got to win football games. You've got to find a way to win football games. And if you win football games, this city has proven they will support the franchise. So I'm kind of here also to talk Florida, Georgia. So I'll do that quickly. Know both programs really well. I have quarterbacks at both programs. I train Anthony Richardson, who is the future of Florida football, and I train Carson Beck, who I believe is the future of Georgia football. So I know both programs really well. This year, the Florida-Georgia game will be, I believe, one of the more interesting games throughout the entire college football season. Could be one of the games of the year. You have strength against strength. You have an amazing offense with Florida with Kyle Trask going up against the best defense that Georgia's had in a long, long time. I'm sorry, somebody said Georgia, Florida. Florida, Georgia, Georgia, Florida. I was a Florida fan. My wife's a Georgia fan. So maybe I'll try to mix it up a little bit. But it should be a really good game, assuming one thing, assuming that Florida in these couple of weeks off have somehow figured out how to tackle somebody, because that seems to be the issue in Gainesville right now. It's a situation very similar to what the Jaguars have, where as an offense, you feel like you have to score every time. A punt is almost a turnover in Gainesville because your defense has been so bad. A game in Texas A&M that they lost that they clearly should have won, but against a team like Georgia, you're not going to be able to score every single time you have the ball. The biggest difference in the two programs right now, and I've held off on making a prediction on this, but I'll put it this way. If both teams are 100% healthy, and so the 11 best on offense is out there for Florida, the 11 best is out there on defense, and they can fix this defense, I think Florida can win that football game. The biggest difference is the depth. And Kirby Smart at Georgia has been there long enough that he has recruited really well, and he's developed a lot of depth. And so if they have someone go down, there's someone else coming in that's almost just as good. That's not the situation yet at Florida. Dan Mullen has done an amazing job. I'm a big fan of Dan Mullen as a person, personally, and really that whole Georgia or Florida staff. But he hasn't been there long enough to establish that depth. And so when Florida has someone, or if Florida has someone go down, they don't have the cats behind them that Georgia has. And so if in the flow of a game, that can mean, 10, 12, 15, 20 snaps. And so how good can Florida be if their right guard goes down? Where in Georgia, if Georgia's right guard goes down, they bring another guy who's going to be playing in the NFL in 3 years right behind them. The obvious contrast of difference, the biggest contrast is at the quarterback position with Kyle Trask, a Heisman candidate who's very, very good at the college game, and then Stetson Bennett at Georgia. I've seen Stetson Bennett for the last couple of years, and Stetson Bennett, while I love him as a person, is not going to win you a football game, meaning he can't put that game on his back and take it over. And you kind of saw that against Alabama, where Kyle Trask has shown the ability to do that. So if Florida can get anything out of their defense this week against Missouri leading up to that Georgia game, I see this as being one of the better Florida-Georgia games that we've seen, or Georgia-Florida games, however you want to. I'm going to try to be politically correct here, that we've seen in a long time. If they can't, then it could be a long night. But if you're a Georgia fan, I mean, my personal opinion is you've got a lot of talent on offense, just not finding a way to get them the ball right now. Don't really have that offensive identity. Their offense coordinator is a Jacksonville resident, actually, Todd Monken. And this is his first year there, and I think he's still trying to feel his way through what he has. So I think the game this week, Georgia to watch, is Georgia and Kentucky. Kentucky, it's very good defensively. Very good defensively. They're making a quarterback change to a local kid that I actually work with, Joey Gatewood, who is dynamic. And he will be starting for Kentucky against Georgia this week. And Kentucky could pose some issues for Georgia. I think Georgia has to find a way to figure things out offensively heading into Florida week, which in itself is a little awkward usually this game follows a bye week. So usually both teams have that bye week. They have the week off to prepare for each other before the Florida game. But when the Florida COVID situation happened, the SEC adjusted the schedule and did the right thing and gave both of them a game before they come down to Jacksonville next week to play this game. Early prediction for me is actually going to be, I think Florida can win this game. I think Florida will win this game. Early prediction. Now, I'll reserve the right to change my mind based on the results from this week, more injury related and what Florida's defense looks like. But I think Florida has enough gas offensively that they can push that Georgia defense the same way that Alabama did. And so I think that Florida wins this game somewhere in the neighborhood. I'm going to say fairly decisively. I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of a 31-23, 31-24 type of game. As long as they stay healthy this week and have figured some things out defensively. I just don't think that Georgia has the firepower to match Florida's offense right now. So that's my prediction for that game. Staying on the local theme real quick, another kid that I work with, Alabama's quarterback, Mac Jones, somebody else to keep an eye on. Mac Jones, Bowls product right here in Jacksonville. Right now is the second leading, according to Vegas, the second leading Heisman candidate behind Trevor Lawrence. So pay attention to Mac. Mac is a great kid, great family. Like I said, from right here in Jacksonville, have an amazing year. And I know there's a bunch of Alabama fans. So let's keep pulling from Mac to bring home some hardware here. So I'll take questions now. I've seen some pop up, but I don't really know how to get back to them to go all the way down the list. So if let me see if I can figure that out.
I can help you out with that, Denny. The first one that I saw was from Ike. Ike, do you want to repeat your question?
So NFL quarterbacks, Manning, Brady, Elway, Marino, Montana, can you narrow down a GOAT? And if so, who do you think that is?
I'm always going to go towards Brady. That's going to be my go-to. But man, that's some good ones. That's some good ones. But I know when we are teaching, going back looking at film, we use a lot of those guys as film references. We use a lot of Tom Brady film. With just the way he's able to control the game by controlling his protection at the line. Same with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was unbelievable at this. But I'm going to go with Tom Brady, but I will say this new generation of quarterback is very interesting. And the days of kind of having, either a standstill thrower of a football or a guy that runs around a ton are done, and those have kind of merged. And now all of a sudden you're seeing guys like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, guys like that, and it's really changed the game. I think in a lot of ways for the better as an offensive guy. If I'm a defensive guy, I hate it.
Thank you, Denny.
Mm-hmm.
I thought when you made your pick, Patty was going to cut you off the screen there.
Well, my wife is a big Georgia fan. My wife, both of her parents graduated from Georgia, and she's in the other room. She's a school teacher teaching from home. So I'm sure she made that. I'm sure I'm going to walk out of my office here to a dirty look here.
Well, we did have another question that came in early from Palmer Bell, and he asked, he said that the rumor is that Minshew was close to being benched. What are the prospects below him?
Well, I believe that is just that. I believe that is a rumor. But behind him, there's Mike Glennon, who's been in the league for a while. And then there's a young kid named Jake Luton, who the Jaguars drafted from Oregon State. Got a chance to work with him a little bit over the summer. Has a chance to be a good player. I will say that if Gardner Minshew's not your answer is not here, though. I think Jake will be an excellent backup for a lot of years in the NFL. Just not real sure he's got the juice to be a franchise type quarterback. So if it's not Gardner, not real sure why you would bench him, because if it's not Gardner, you know that you're drafting your next guy. Your next guy isn't here right now.
Thank you, Denny. The next question that came in was from Philippe, and I'm going to read it. And I don't think I understand it, but I'm going to read it.
Okay.
With issues protecting the quarterback, would a first-round quarterback pick be enough? When we had a pocket passer in Foles, it didn't work, and now he was doing a lot better with the Bears.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. I made that argument last week on the radio is are you better off if you don't draft number one? If you draft number one, you absolutely pick Trevor Lawrence. No question. Like the minute you find out you're drafting number one, don't even wait till the draft. Go ahead and turn the card in. You want him. But if you don't get that number one pick, I don't think you automatically just go to the next quarterback. There's a very good offensive lineman out of Oregon, another generational type talent that may be worth looking at. And you do have enough draft picks that you can build around the quarterback. But, thankfully for me with what I do for a living, the quarterback is the money position. And if you don't have it, you're not going to win. And so I think, this year's draft with Trevor Lawrence and with Justin Fields, with Mac Jones, with Kyle Trask, with Trey Lance, guys like that, there are other quarterbacks to be had if you don't win the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes.
Every time you say Trevor Lawrence, I see Bill Howie. He's happy. And Larry Daly asked if you thought Trevor Lawrence is the answer for the Jags. He says,
Yes.
I see defense that needs a lot of help.
Well, yes, at the quarterback position, I think the Jaguars have a lot of holes that need to be filled. It's not going to be just Trevor. It's going to be getting – all right, here's my personal opinion. My personal opinion is you got to fire the general manager. I hate to fire people, but you got to. He's had long enough. If any of us did our job the way he's done his job, we would all be fired by now. So you've got to get somebody who has a plan, be over and above the obvious pick of Trevor Lawrence if you have the number one pick, that has a plan to rebuild this team. And in today's NFL, that rebuild should take less than 3 years. That rebuild should be a 2022, 2023 playoff caliber team with the amount of cap space and the amount of picks that you have. And so the way you rebuild the Jags, the way that the answer for the Jags is more in the front office than it is on the field this offseason.
Thank you, Denny. I think despite your pick, you did have a unanimous response from the club on that comment. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure, and thank you guys so much for having me. It's always fun.
I wanted to also thank our folks from the Riverside Club for joining us and for being with us on Saturday for the cleanup. And hopefully as things progress, we can continue this tradition of getting together. And hopefully next year it'll be in person for our Florida, Georgia meeting. I just want to remind everybody next week we will be at Timuquana. So please remember to RSVP, and our speaker next week is past District Governor Art McQueen. With Bob Hyde not here for the four-way test, Ike, I see you front and center on my screen. Can you lead us in that, please?
Of the things we think, say, or do, first.
Is it the truth?
Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it build goodwill and better friends?
Fourth.
Will it be
And that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a good week.
Bye, y'all. Take care.
Bye, guys. See you, Casey.
Good to see you, Dan.
Bye, Kevin.